She sold it. That's what my neighbor whispered. When I stepped out of the rideshare with my duffel bag still over my shoulder, I had just come back from overseas. 8 months deploy, sand still in my boots. My house was supposed to be the one safe place left in my life, but the mailbox was gone. My flag was gone, and there was a new lock on my front door. I stood there for a second, thinking maybe I was on the wrong street. Then I saw her. Karen, red blazer, arms crossed, standing on my porch like she owned the air around it. "You can't be here," she said. I laughed. I thought it was a joke. "This is my house." She didn't smile. Not anymore. Something in my chest dropped. She held up a paper. HOA foreclosure. Abandoned property. Sold at auction. I blinked. I was deployed. She shrugged. "You didn't respond to the violation notices." "What notices?" "The ones about your lawn, your flagpole, your truck." "My truck." I turned around. My driveway was empty. "Where is it?" "Removed," she said calmly. "Unauthorized vehicle." It felt like someone punched me. I walked toward my door. She stepped in front of me. "Sir, you are trespassing on my own porch." I stared at her. "You sold my house. It was legal. While I was deployed. You didn't file the proper HOA military exemption form." I felt my jaw tighten. There is a silence that comes before something breaks. This was that silence. Behind her, I noticed something else. The name on the mailbox. It wasn't mine. It was hers. Karen Whitmore. She didn't just sell it. She bought it. "You bought my house?" I asked quietly. It was a good deal. My hands were shaking now, but not from fear. From control. Because if I let go, this street would see a different version of me. "I have the deed," I said. She smiled like I was a child. "Not anymore." That's when two security guards walked up the driveway. "Not police. Private security. For everyone's safety," she said. One of them looked at me and lowered his voice. "Sir, maybe you should leave." I looked at the windows of my house. My curtains were gone. The porch light I installed before deployment, replaced. My daughter's chalk drawings on the driveway, washed away. Karen leaned closer. "You should have thought about your responsibilities before running off to play soldier." Play soldier. That was the moment. Not the house. Not the truck. Not the fake foreclosure. That sentence. I pulled out my phone. She laughed. "Calling the police. I already informed them about a possible disturbance." "I'm not calling the police," I said. I pressed one contact. She folded her arms. "Who exactly do you think is going to help you?" I put the phone to my ear. "Sir," I said calmly, and he picked up. "I'm home." There was a pause. Then I added, "And apparently my property was sold while I was serving." Karen rolled her eyes, but her smile faded when I said the next sentence. "Yes, Colonel, the entire subdivision." She froze. Not fully, just a small shift in her face, like her brain was trying to catch up. "You're exaggerating," she snapped. I didn't answer her. I just listened. "Yes, sir," I said into the phone. "I still have the original land grant documents, signed before this HOA even existed." Karen's face changed. "What land grant?" she demanded. I ended the call slowly. Then I looked at her. "You didn't sell my land," I said. "You sold yours." She laughed again, but it sounded forced. "This neighborhood has been under HOA authority for 15 years. "Wrong," I replied. I pointed down the street. "You see that sign? The one that says Whitmore Estates?" She nodded slightly. "My great-grandfather's name was Whitmore." Her eyes widened. "I never sold the master parcel rights." She stepped back. "That's not possible." I was waiting to see who would try. The security guards looked confused. A few neighbors started coming outside, phones in their hands, recording. I reached into my duffel bag, pulled out a worn folder. Stamped, sealed, Government, Inc. I didn't fight for this country to be locked out of my own front door. Karen's voice cracked just a little. "This is harassment." "No," I said softly. "This is repossession." And in the distance, I heard engines. Not police cars. Not security. Military transport vehicles, turning onto our street. The engines got louder. Not one. Not two. 3 matte green military vehicles turned onto the street like they had every right to be there, because they did. Neighbors stepped off their lawns. Phones went up. Karen's security guards slowly backed away from my porch. One of them whispered, "Ma'am, this doesn't look private." Karen forced a laugh. He's bluffing. The first vehicle stopped right in front of my driveway. Doors opened. Uniforms stepped out. Not loud, not dramatic. Calm, precise. A tall officer walked toward me, sunglasses on, folder in his hand. Staff Sergeant Mason? Yes, sir. He nodded once, then looked at Karen. You are Karen Whitmore. She straightened up. Yes, president of the HOA. Former, he replied. Her smile dropped. Excuse me? He opened his folder and held up a document. This subdivision sits on federally protected master parcel. Fortina, that parcel was never transferred to the HOA. It remained under private family trust with military contingency protection. The street went silent. Karen shook her head. That's not possible. We have incorporation papers. You incorporated air, he said calmly. Not land. A few neighbors gasped. I didn't say a word. The officer continued. While Staff Sergeant Mason was deployed, the HOA initiated an illegal foreclosure on property you never legally controlled. Karen's voice got louder. We followed procedure. He violated community standards. The officer didn't blink. Federal law overrides community standards. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. Under the Service Members Civil Relief Act, any foreclosure during active deployment without a court order is void. Her face drained of color. One of the neighbors whispered, she sold his house. The officer turned to me. Sir, do you wish to proceed with enforcement? I looked at my front door. My replaced lock, her name on my mailbox. Yes, I said. He nodded. Two military legal officers stepped forward and began walking door to door. Karen laughed nervously. What are they doing? Informing residents, the officer replied. Informing them of what? She demanded. That their deeds are tied to an invalid HOA structure built on land that legally belongs to the Mason family trust. Silence. Pure silence. Phones kept recording. You can't just take people's homes, she yelled. I finally spoke. I'm not taking their homes. I looked down the street. I'm taking back my land. A neighbor stepped forward. Wait. What does that mean for us? The officer answered calmly. It means your mortgages are valid. But the governing HOA authority is dissolved effective immediately. Any fines, liens, or property transfers conducted by that HOA are under federal investigation. Karen stumbled back a step. This is revenge, she hissed at me. No. I said quietly. You tried to erase me. At that exact moment, another vehicle pulled up. This one wasn't military. It was county police. Karen's confidence flickered back. Good. She snapped. I called them earlier. Two deputies stepped out. The military officer handed them a packet. They read it. Then they turned, not to me, to her. Ma'am, one deputy said carefully. Did you authorize the sale of 42 properties under the HOA restructuring last year? Her mouth opened. Closed. That was administrative. Did you personally purchase foreclosed properties under a proxy LLC? Her hands started shaking. That's legal. Not if the foreclosures were invalid. The deputy's tone changed. Karen Whitmore, you are being detained pending investigation for fraud, unlawful foreclosure, and impersonation of governing authority. The entire street exploded in whispers. She looked at me like I had betrayed her. You planned this. I shook my head slowly. I just came home. They placed her in cuffs. Right there, on my porch. As they guided her toward the patrol car, she twisted around and screamed. You think you've won? I didn't respond, because I wasn't finished. The military officer stepped closer to me. There's one more issue, sir. What issue? He handed me another paper. It was a financial summary. The HOA reserve funds, millions, misallocated, shifted, transferred to the Whitmore Holdings Development Group, he said. I looked down the street again. Half the houses had new construction signs. Future expansion, future phase 2. Karen hadn't just been stealing houses. She had been planning to sell the entire subdivision to a private developer. And she needed me gone first, because my land rights blocked the expansion. I let out a slow breath. She didn't sell my house, I said quietly. The officer nodded. She tried to erase the only obstacle. The patrol car door shut. Karen inside. Neighbors staring. Cameras still rolling. I walked to my front door. One of the deputies handed me a bolt cutter. For your lock, sir. I cut it clean, pushed the door open. The house smelled different. Empty. Cold. But still mine. I stepped inside slowly, then turned back toward the street, toward everyone watching. I'm not here to take your homes, I said loud enough for them to hear. I'm here to remove the leash. And that's when one neighbor stepped forward holding something in his hand. A document. Stamped, signed, with my name forged at the bottom. The paper in his hand was shaking. I didn't know, he said quickly. They told us you signed this. He walked toward me slowly, like I might explode. I took the document. One look. My name was there. My signature. Almost perfect, but not perfect. She practiced it. She studied it. But she missed one thing. I never sign with my full first name. Never. To forge signature said Jonathan Mason. I always sign J. Mason. Always. I looked up. Karen was halfway inside the patrol car. I walked toward it. One deputy stepped slightly in front of me, but the officer gave him a small nod. It was fine. Karen leaned her head out slightly. You're making a mistake, she said quietly. I held up the paper. You signed my name. She didn't respond. You transferred parcel authority using a forged military power of attorney. Still silence. Then she smiled. You were deployed. Who was going to check? That sentence hit harder than anything else. Not angry. Not loud. Just cold. Like I was a problem she solved on paper. The deputy shut the car door fully this time. As they drove away, the entire street felt different. Like something heavy had lifted, but something bigger had just started. I turned back to the neighbor. What else did she have you sign? Within minutes, 3 more neighbors brought documents, refinancing agreements, HOA restructuring forms, development approvals. Every single one referenced my land as common transferable authority. It wasn't just fraud. It was calculated. She needed majority signatures to convert the subdivision into a private development zone, and my master parcel rights were the only thing blocking her. So she erased me. On paper. One older man stepped forward slowly. I tried to question her once, he said. She fined me $2,000 for an unapproved mailbox. Another woman added, she said, if we didn't cooperate, property values would crash. Fear. She built the whole thing on fear. The military officer walked up beside me. Sir, this is larger than foreclosure. I know. He looked down the street. We're freezing all HOA financial accounts immediately. One of the legal officers was already on the phone. I looked at the neighbors again. You deserve the truth, I said calmly. They listened, because now they knew she lied. My great-grandfather owned this entire area before it was even divided, I said. When developers came in the 90s, he sold residential plots, but he kept master ground rights under a trust. That trust activates protection clauses if I'm deployed. A woman blinked. Protection from what? Hostile takeover. Silence. She didn't just break HOA rules, I continued. She triggered federal protection law. One teenager whispered, this is insane. No. What was insane was how close she came. A black SUV turned the corner slowly. Not military, not police. Dark windows. It stopped near the entrance sign. Whitmore Estates. A man stepped out in a gray suit. He didn't look confused. He looked annoyed. He walked straight toward me. Staff Sergeant Mason? Yes, I'm representing Whitmore Holdings Development Group. Of course he was. He adjusted his tie. We were in the final phase of acquisition. Acquisition of what? I asked. He gestured vaguely around. This subdivision. I smiled slightly. You bought air. His jaw tightened. We have signed agreements with a dissolved HOA. He looked toward the military vehicles, then back at me. This can still be resolved privately. That word, privately. You tried to remove me illegally while I was deployed, I said. There is no private. He lowered his voice. You don't want to fight this. Development money is already in motion. I stepped closer. I've been in real fights. He studied me differently after that. Then he said something that made the entire situation shift. You're not the only Mason there. I didn't react, but inside, something moved. What does that mean? I asked evenly. He smirked slightly, checked the updated trust filings. He walked back to his SUV and drove off. The military officer looked at me. Do you have siblings? No. Cousins? None with claim. He nodded once. We'll verify. But something felt wrong. Karen wouldn't have acted alone. She wasn't smart enough to structure something this deep. I walked back into my house. Inside, most of my furniture was gone. Not stolen. Removed. Catalogued. There were inventory tags on the wall hooks. They had planned to stage the home for resale. In my own living room, I found a folder on the kitchen counter, Whitmore Holdings logo. Inside were layout maps. Phase 2 expansion. It showed the current subdivision. Then arrows. Expansion into wooded land behind us. My land. They weren't just buying homes. They were trying to control access roads through my parcel. Without it, their entire development collapsed. I heard boots on the porch. The officer stepped inside. Sir. He handed me a tablet. Digital records pulled from county archives. My trust filing. Updated 2 months ago. Filed by Jonathan Mason. My chest went cold. That's impossible. He zoomed in. Electronic signature. Not forged handwriting. Authenticated digital military ID. My ID. I felt the room shift. I never filed this. Someone accessed your credentials. That's when it hit me. Before deployment, HOA required residents to submit emergency contact and ID verification forms. I uploaded a copy of my military ID to their portal. Karen had access, or someone did. This wasn't just fraud. This was identity theft using federal credentials. The officer's tone hardened. This is now federal cybercrime. Outside, neighbors were still gathered, phones buzzing. News vans were starting to arrive. Word spreads fast when military vehicles roll into a quiet American suburb. I stepped back outside. A reporter called out, "Are you taking over the neighborhood?" I shook my head. "I'm taking back what was never for sale." Another reporter shouted, "Is it true the HOA was fake?" "It was real," I replied. "Just corrupt." Then an older woman walked toward me slowly, tears in her eyes. "She found us when my husband was in the hospital," she said. Said our trash bin was visible to long. Her voice broke. I felt something deeper than anger now. This wasn't just about me. Karen weaponized paperwork against people who trusted her. One of the deputies approached again. "Sir, we searched her vehicle." He held up a small metal box. Inside were USB drives, hard drives, and a folder labeled Phase Final. They opened it. There were internal emails between Karen and Whitmore Holdings. The dates went back 3 years. She had been planning this long before I deployed. One email stood out. Subject: remove obstacle. To body read: military clause holder will be overseas by March. Initiate violation sequence early. I felt my jaw lock. She timed it. She watched my deployment schedule. She waited. A viral line formed in my head without even trying. You don't attack a soldier on the battlefield. So she attacked my mailbox. The cameras caught that, and it spread. Within hours, the county issued an emergency statement suspending all HOA enforcement authority pending full investigation. But the twist wasn't done, because as the sun started setting, the officer received another call. He stepped aside, listened, then looked at me differently. "Sir, there's been a claim filed." "By who?" "A woman in Arizona." I froze. "Claiming to be your half-sister." Silence swallowed the street. "That's impossible," I said. "She's presenting DNA documents and a revised trust beneficiary addendum." I shook my head slowly. "My father never mentioned." "She's claiming your grandfather had a second family." The world didn't tilt. It snapped. If that claim held weight, the trust ownership would split. And if ownership split, master parcel control could freeze in litigation, which would buy Whitmore Holdings time. This wasn't random. This was layered. Karen wasn't the brain. She was the entry point. The military officer spoke carefully. "We need to verify this immediately." I looked down the street. Neighbors watching. News vans flashing lights. My house barely reclaimed. And now this. The deputy handed me a phone. "Her lawyer is requesting direct communication." I stared at the screen. "Unknown Arizona number." I answered. A woman's voice. Calm. Soft. "Jonathan?" I didn't answer. "I'm not your enemy," she said. "Then why file now?" I asked. "Because someone approached me." "Of course they did." "Whitmore Holdings?" I asked. "Yes," she continued. "They offered me money to assert claim, said it was legally mine." "And is it?" I asked quietly. There was a long pause. "I don't know." The street was silent again, waiting, watching. The biggest twist wasn't Karen. It wasn't the development. It was blood, family, or maybe fake family. I spoke carefully. "If you're real, if this is real, then we handle it together. Not through developers." Another pause. "They told me you'd say that." "Say what?" "That you're stubborn." Despite everything. I almost smiled. That sounded like something my grandfather would say. The military officer watched my face. "Bring your documents here," I told her. "Tomorrow." She hesitated. "They warned me not to come." "Good," I replied. "Then come." I ended the call. The sun dipped lower. Red light across the houses. Across the sign that still read Whitmore Estates. Corinne's last name. My bloodline. The officer stood beside me. "This isn't over." "I know." I looked at my house. Lights slowly coming back on. Neighbors talking without fear for the first time. "I came home expecting rest," I said quietly. "But if they want a war over paper." I looked down the street where the developer SUV disappeared. They picked the wrong soldier, and just as the cameras started packing up, a tow truck turned the corner. Hooked to the back of it. My truck. But it wasn't damaged. It wasn't impounded. It had a new registration sticker. Registered to Whitmore Holdings Development Group. The tow truck stopped right in front of me. My truck was chained down like it was evidence. But it wasn't in police custody. It was tagged for corporate transfer. The driver stepped out slowly. He looked nervous. "I was told to deliver this to the new owner," he said. I walked around the truck once. They had cleaned it. Detailed it. Even replaced my old unit sticker on the back window. But they missed something. On the inside of the tailgate, carved into the metal years ago, were 3 letters. JM. Burned in with a heated knife before my first deployment. You can change papers. You can change plates. You can't change steel. I looked at the driver. Who ordered the transfer? He swallowed. Corporate dispatch. Whitmore Holdings. The military officer stepped forward. "Unhook it." The driver didn't argue. Chains dropped. Metal hit pavement. My truck rolled free. I opened the door. The engine started on the first turn. Like it had been waiting. The officer's phone buzzed again. He listened quietly. Then he looked at me and nodded. "Federal warrant approved. For?" I asked. "Full seizure of Whitmore Holdings local assets pending fraud investigation." I let out a slow breath. They thought this was just land. It wasn't. It was leverage. And now they had none. The next morning, the street filled again. Not with patrol cars. Not with military trucks. But with neighbors. Quiet. Watching.